Real estate is about freedom, choice freedom, time freedom, and money freedom, and the impact you can make with that freedom. But it doesn't come without cost. Your freedom takes work. That's why Neil Timmins brings together the tools you need to build your real estate legacy, from tips and tricks to interviews with industry titans. It's all here in one place. Real Grit. Let's get to it.
What if I told you you can make 20 times the return of a single family fix and flip on your next big deal? Well, it's actually possible. It's possible inside the world of commercial real estate. Say, I'm inviting you to this free challenge. It starts August 15th. It's totally free. It's a 5-day challenge where I'm going to take you and deep dive into the world of commercial real estate, more specifically, capital multiplier properties, what that is, how we identify them. I'm going to show you how to identify them, how to evaluate them, and how to lock them up risk-free. I'm going to give you all the paperwork to do it. It's totally free. You can sign up to join us at www.20xprofitchallenge.com/real grit. That's www.20xprofitchallenge.com/real grit. And I'll see you in the challenge. On today's show, Amy Ransdell. This is a killer show. We're going to be talking about how to break through the mental barriers that hold you back from achieving your next level. What's holding back from people getting started in this business or pivoting to a new segment of the business, adding on things to their existing successful business? And then also for super massive high achievers, what is it that has them going down a cycle, rolling in a cycle that business is killing it, but their personal life, their health, other avenues of their life are really in disarray. We talk about that. We talk about how to take the next steps, a couple of things, exercises that you can do to reshape your focus, get into a new state of mind. So this is a really, really good show. I'm excited to have Amy Ransdell on the show today, coming right up. All right, Amy Ransdell, I'm excited to have you here on Real Grit. How you been?
Oh, great. And thank you for having me, by the way.
It's my pleasure. I'm excited about this conversation. Tell me, we all started someplace, and a lot of us, I'm in real estate. So a lot of us are in real estate, but your entry point into your professional career was kind of corporately, wasn't it?
Yeah, technically.
Yeah.
I'm an interesting oddball. I've always been an entrepreneur since I was a kid, but I went to college and I went in with a biochem direction, ended up with an art degree, and then ended up in marketing. And that took me into performance, behavior, training, and development. And so I was teaching executives and business sales how to sell better. And it really was more than that. It was how to step past their own issues to become a better person at what they did. And so that was my corporate direction. I'm an accidental real estate person. Yeah. Really wasn't the plan, but I'm OC type A, love building things. I love creating. And I had this opportunity 20 something years ago and jumped into real estate.
No, that's great. Take me back to that role. It sounded like what I heard you say was you really largely influenced and attacked and achieved outcomes by going through and fixing people's inner game versus, what to say, how to present an offer. It's really the stuff on their inside, the limiting pieces, the things that held them back.
100%. Yeah. And nobody else was coming at them with that, right? Everybody was just giving them new objections, how to write, how to craft the new objection, how to, scripting them, right? Going over product details. It was all about, well, we can sell better because we know more about the product. Right. But the reality was that the person selling, if they didn't have an identity or belief system that supported the result they wanted, they weren't going to get any better at what they did, right? So there are many, many issues. I mean, it can be cliche and say 90% is all what's in your head, but it's the truth. Reality is you have to be able internally to step into the identity of what serves the result that you want. And if you have anything in you that doesn't believe in it, it's going to get in the way.
How did you come at it from that angle? What was it in your past that allowed you to come directionally from there?
Oh, boy. So to let all of my, behind the velvet curtain kind of thing I hear, I was a messed up kid. I'll just be honest. I had gone through some really crazy traumatic experiences very young. And that had created in me a lot of programs that I knew consciously were not serving my higher intention, that they were absolutely getting in my way, absolutely holding me back and keeping me from everything that I believed I was created and designed for. So here I knew consciously that I was beating against my own own self, right? Like literally, I would watch myself do the stupidest things, like self-sabotage and so forth, and yet know that that's what I'm doing, right? So unconsciously, I was running programs that I had learned early on because of those traumatic experiences that were working against me. So I started this life path of how could I shift that in myself? Like, what would it take? What did I need to understand about the human mind, psychology, our chemical makeup, our biochemical makeup? Like, what are all the things that, how do they work together such that I could perform better, such that I could beat my own programs and go where I really wanted to go, right? So it was a journey. And so because I had already been pursuing that, it's going to sound awful, but where I worked became my petri dish, right? Like I could test the things on lots of people besides myself and started seeing results. And we're like, holy cow, like this stuff really works, right? So let's do more of that. Let's learn more. And so I've just been, it's like being in my world is like being in my human lab because I will try everything we learn. So
what was the genesis of the question that allowed you to even identify that you had gone down a path, that you were living these programs that didn't serve you best? A lot of people never have that thought to go, why am I doing this? But you had that thought and had to really take a step back and identify that case.
Yeah. You said something very key there about people, right? So everybody that's listening, I remember one of the core tenets of the program of working with me as a coach in the performance space. I have 27 laws of my client-coach relationship. One of them is that there's no right or wrong. There's what's right for you.
That's right.
That's working for you, right? Now, it's super important. Because I think what happens is a lot of us, we go through measures of growth in our life, and everyone at some point in their life may have things happen that bring their awareness, a level of pain or discomfort. It could be something that brings their awareness to that where they are is not where they want to be. Okay. Now that could happen for someone super young. That could happen for someone because of a direct response to an event. It could happen for someone way later in life. And for some people, it may never happen. And that's okay. It doesn't make any one person right or wrong above the other or where you experience it. I always like to say that because people will judge themselves even. Why did I not have my awareness till I was in my retirement age? Or why did I not have my awareness? And why didn't this occur to me earlier? Right? It's okay if it didn't. For me, I just credit, honestly, some of those experiences that were so negative in my young life, also being the positive experiences, a lot of around my faith, a lot of the things I was pushed to have to learn in the environment I was raised in, that just gave me a much deeper conscious awareness of what we were designed to experience in our lives. And so I just had this conflict in myself of part of me knew this wasn't working and part of me knew I was meant for something so much better. Right. So for those listening, if you have even the slightest little flutter in your belly, just the slightest anything that's going to hit you that where you are is not really where you want to be, lean into that and let's explore it.
You're totally right about that. At some point you entered into real estate out of the corporate world. Talk to me about that. What was the entry point, and bring me kind of through the journey of real estate.
Yeah. So I always tell people I'm the accidental real estate person. I gotta love it. I married a man all those years ago. I met a man early in that time who was dabbling in real estate. And when I say dabbling, everybody knows this story. He was going to boot camps, following gurus, ordering their binders all wrapped in shrink wrap and plastic and DVD sets and all this stuff, right? And spending thousands of dollars and all this stuff. And then the stuff would come to the house, or he'd be gone for a week. He'd come back. He would never crack it open, like do anything with it really in any real way. And okay, well, I'm a driver, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah. I'm like, why are you not doing something with this, like big, right? So I just started being the one that opened them up. And then I started calling the people who wrote the manuals. I wanted to talk to the writers, like who created this. I don't, not your organization. I want the guy that really did it, or the girl, right? And so I really just started pursuing it. That led to us doing a lot of short sales between 01 and 09. We work primarily pre-foreclosure. I love the pre-foreclosure still to this day. It's one of my favorite pipelines to build, especially in what we call short non-judicial states. Mm-hmm. But we were doing short sales when banks didn't even have short sale departments. You would call them and say, this is how you're going to do it. And they would say, oh, okay. It was really different back then.
Yep.
So from 01 to 09, that was our primary. And then we did a lot of terms, a lot of rent to own, lease option, a wrap type mortgage financing. We would do wholesale lease options. We were doing a lot of really unique and creative structuring through that time as well. And then that led into other things. I got my license. We started a brokerage, became a hybrid model that supported investors and agents who wanted to learn to become investors or serve investors. I still do that to this day. So I just mushroomed from there, and it's been 22 years this December.
Incredible. And then at some point you morphed out of that, really, or tacked it on to probably a better way to say it, into the peak performance space, helping not just real estate folks, investors, brokers, agents, et cetera, but really entrepreneurs. Because at the end of the day, real estate is a business. I know a whole bunch of people like to think it's somehow different, but doing real estate, doing some other type of business, there's a lot of similarities. There's still marketing, there's still sales, there's still finance, you got to have core components to a business that exist in all of them.
Right. I mean, there's two different categories, I think, of stuff that are the same. Mm-hmm. One is all the tactical stuff you just mentioned, right? Like, I got to understand all these tactical things and how to deploy them. And also, I'm a human and I'm going to have to level up my growth, elevate my critical thinking, elevate my mental toughness, elevate my leadership development. Like, all the things come with that as well. And there we go. My dog. Sorry. So it takes this rise in growth that they have to do when we talk about people in going after anything. And it's not just that they're going to go start a business or a side hustle, if you want to call it that, right? Or they're going to just simply go from being a couch potato their whole life to becoming a body lifter that's going to compete in physique competitions around the world. Like, right? I don't care if you're going to go from here to here, you're going to have to change a little bit. You're going to have to elevate your critical thinking, your mental toughness. You're going to have to find solution skills that you didn't have to have before for what you're going into. So whether you talk about, yes, in business, I don't care what you do, there's this list of tactical things that apply, whatever the business is. If I sell ice cubes or tires or, baby diapers, or I sell houses, I'm going to have departments. I'm going to have tactical things. And also, I'm also going to have human development challenges, my own and those that I work with. My levels of leadership will be limited by my own experience and my own level that I can take myself to. So you are going to be facing growth on either side, right? No matter what business. Now, I tend to work with a lot of real estate people because I've been around the real estate world for so long, but we also work with people in any niche.
Yep. Let's talk about it specifically from real estate. When somebody's coming to you, what is it that's holding them back? And I think, going back to how we opened this conversation, it's a lot of it's the headspace, the things that are internally holding them back from hitting that next level. How does a person combat that?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things I'd love to say that are pretty common that I see holding people back. One of them is sometimes just simply not trusting themselves or self-belief, right? There's some very, very common limiting beliefs are things like, I'm not worthy, I'm not enough, I'm not capable, this is beyond me, right? I'm not deserving of this. This is what somebody else's future is going to be. That can't be mine, right? So that's very common. That's generally a pool of beliefs that will absolutely hold someone back. Another thing I see quite frequently is simply not having a visceral, clear direction or destination that they're really wanting to go for. And by the way, that's not a tactical answer. If someone says, I want 100 houses, I want to acquire 100 doors, great. That's a mission. That's a project with a mission. We call that commander intent. This is what we're going after. But there has to be a higher purpose reason behind that, for what purpose those 100 doors, right? And that's beyond just having, again, core values or mission statement or a project mission. It's something deeper and more visceral. And some people are simply missing that, which is oftentimes connected to the first thing I mentioned, right? And then I think the other side of that is fear, that comfort, discomfort type of dichotomy of maybe I like discomfort, but also I'm super scared to be stepping out of my comfort zone into somewhere I've never been before, right? And so when we have fear running, we'll fall back complacent into the things that we aren't uncomfortable. It's natural human behavior, right? And so we'll go back to old ways of doing things, old programs, give up on projects, self-sabotage a little bit because, well, it's too uncomfortable out there, even if we don't really want to admit that, right? Yep. So those seem to be pretty common. There's quite a list, but I would say that's pretty common.
On the other side of the spectrum is a better way to say it. You've got very high achievers, and very high achievers just act and operate very differently, but it's not all positive. A bunch of folks don't slow down. They push, and a result, there's some impacts into their life, often into their personal lives, based on their behavior.
100%. So your high achievers, almost across the board, you see things like perfectionitis. You'll see things like burnout, because they will push themselves so hard, and ignore everything that's sustaining what they need in order to push that hard, right? There'll be a lot of collateral damage. You just described that, right? Yeah. So there comes the myth of balance, right? Well, I can drive in my business. I've got the supercar. I own 1,000 units. I've this, I've that, and their marriage is falling apart, or their health is falling apart, right? So they're forgetting to take care of the other things that are important to them, which comes back to, again, that visceral connection to the purpose of why they're doing it, right? Mm-hmm. I believe also you see with high achievers too, this lack of, so they don't slow down. And to me, it's even more than that. I always tell my clients, slow down to go fast. But here's something really important. When I say slow down to go fast, there's some things I want you to do when you slow down. And one of them is to take the time to celebrate the growth, the lessons, the learnings, the milestones, the achievements that you've gotten to along the path to get to where you are. And so many times high achievers won't turn around and look at where they've come from, mm-hmm. just freaking out about where they still have to go, right? Even if it's super exciting, right? But it's still, they're always building the next Mount Vesuvius for them to climb, right? And even if there isn't a mountain to climb, they'll go create one. Like they'll create a volcano so they can have one, right? And so the sabotage can work in different ways in order for them to continue keeping themselves in this program of go, 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 because that's what they're used to. And that's how they identify themselves, which comes back to the question you asked before about way people, things that happen that get in their way. Another one is simply identity. How you identify yourself will define how you live, right? And if I gotta go, I'm a driver, I'm a high achiever. If that's how you define yourself, then that can absolutely work against you for how you'll make decisions.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think about high achievers relative to, the beginning of the spectrum, which we started this conversation, was things that hold you back from taking action, from achieving, let's call it a next level, whatever that next level may be. At the high achievers, a lot of it also is emotionally based, emotional driven. You indicated, that visceral connection to something. In many cases, for ultra high achievers, it is largely emotionally based, largely within their identity, and has nothing to do with any material outcome in many cases. That why, if they'll ever admit to it, is often an emotional why.
Absolutely. And absolutely, that's a good thing to be able to pay from a self-awareness standpoint, right? Like this is another key tenet of our program. We're all about increasing self-awareness. To really pay attention to what emotions are driving that. Where are they? And again, are they working for you, right? Is that really what you want to have, hold, and feel when you get to the end of the result you're going after, right? Emotions are what drive human behavior, 100%, right? So we are in control of our emotions, and also those elevated emotions are necessary in order for us to stay connected and driven for what we really want, right?
Yes.
You'll backlog and you'll take yourself backwards, if you will, or
regress. Sure.
Regress, procrastinate when our drivers are negative based or emotions. So, motivation stops once you get away from the pain, and all of a sudden you don't do any more. There's so many things that can work against you. So pay attention. I have a client of mine that I've worked with for quite a while, actually. And he's very driven by anger. Right? Anger is his driver. It's I'm going to go prove to the world that I'm not who they said I was as some redheaded, kid that was mistreated as a child. And so he has this big chip on his shoulder, right? But the problem with that is that that's his driver instead of positive emotions and a positive belief in his future. And so on the flip side, then he'll go do things to create situations where he can be angry. Right. Now, he's also one of those ones who's experienced extreme collateral damage in his personal life.
Sure.
It is, right? He doesn't have any relationships, can't keep friendships. His retention in his companies is often poor, unless he keeps himself removed from the hiring and development side of the businesses. Yep. So just, be aware, what emotions really are they for you?
Do you often see negative emotions or positive emotions working better for someone? I think it's a loaded question because it probably has to do with the situation and maybe not globally through one's whole life. There are probably pieces of it in which it both can be utilized for positive.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'm not saying that, for instance, being angry about something isn't sometimes a good, singular moment scenario where that's like, I'm going to take care of something. But I will say this is super important about the way the brain works. So you have peak state emotions, which are your more positive state, elevated emotions, things like joy, abundance, love, right? And anything in that world, happiness. I mean, you could use a million words to describe that. Peace, calm, and keep going. And then you have negative state emotions like fear, shame, guilt, right? Like anything in the negative place, sadness, right? So here's the way the brain works. When the brain is facing negative state emotions, okay, then it goes into survival mode, 100%. And so it starts survival thinking. Well, survival thinking isn't very broad. It's not expansive. Survival thinking is very, very, blinders on. I'm going to do one thing to survive and survive only. It's not thinking about where you're trying to go in life. It's not thinking about that positive result that you want. It's not thinking about that visceral connection to your why. It's not thinking about anything. The brain is literally just thinking, I don't like this way this feels. I'm going to solve the way I feel for the moment. So it's survival thinking. Well, when you are in positive state emotions, flip yourself around and face the other way, and you're in the states of positive emotions, now the brain is able to not be in survival mode. It can be in thrive mode. This is literally how the brain works. And so now it can be creative, resourceful, innovative. Your solution skills, your solutions oriented, it goes to a whole nother level. Mental toughness, resiliency, courage, tenacity, all of those things can grow and compound upon themselves because there's no survival thinking that's very limited and very narrow focused, right? For a lot of my clients, we actually use what we call the hallway analogy. We use it with all of our clients. We give them an anchor in their mind of imagining themselves standing in a long hallway. Yep. One end is narrow and dark, and that's your negative state emotions. The other is very open and broad. And where we get them to work with me such that we are in a place where they can just turn themselves around in the hallway. So when they see themselves going down the trail of negative state emotions, because you could have one person aggravate you at a traffic light, before you know it, you're thinking about what you were angry about when you were 5 years old. And, like this partner who hurt me on this and this deal that went south and that stupid employee who did this bad thing, like all of a sudden you go down a wormhole. So if you can quickly catch the fact that you're going that way, you can just say, you know what, I'm going to turn myself around. And I have clients who will literally just like physically turn themselves around. They can just remind themselves, no, this is where I can be innovative and creative. So to your question, as a universal answer, we will always be much more expansive, much more able to head towards where we really want to go in a big way by being always in peak state emotions.
All memories are anchored in emotions. Do you work with folks? Is there an ability to adjust, to be so self-aware that one can adjust their emotion or be cognizant of their emotional state while living in the experience, therefore altering, right, what will someday be a memory?
Absolutely. So the cool thing is you have the ability to choose the meaning that you want to associate to an event. Yeah. Now, this is super important because we can get super creative in our heads and come up with all kinds of narratives that have nothing to do with what's actually happening in the event, right? And so we've all seen that. We'll freak out and we're like, this narrative starts running. So again, using some skills of self-awareness, right? It's one of the reasons I love meditation. It really teaches people to be very self-aware and very quickly have the ability to focus and get back into state, is to be aware of that and choose the meaning that is literal, right? What's the truth of the event so that you can attach something powerful to it. Now, something else that's, I think, super important that tags right into that question. We also all carry file systems of memories, right? Now, if at anywhere in your life you had an event occur that you attached an irrational meaning and emotions with, right, for that type of event, then at any point in your life where a similar type event might come up for you, you're going to trigger the same irrational emotional response because you created the program for it way, way back, right? So one of the things we actually do with our clients is help them go all the way back to the very beginnings of themselves, wherever their unconscious mind chooses to go, and go back and change the meaning of each event. so that the program is permanently rewired so that from here moving forward, should an event come up that's similar, they would have the new meaning, not the old one. So yes, you can do it in the moment. And yes, you can also work with teams like ours to help you shift those and rewire those old programs.
As a result of doing that, are they establishing then a new identity from that point forward?
Potentially. I think for some people, so there's a difference between, I would say, the vocabulary word of their own identity and also what meanings they associate with events. Now, but they're very interrelated because oftentimes what happens too is we go down wormholes of what I believe about myself based upon what occurred in an event, right? So let's just use an example. We're all business people in real estate, and let's say a deal goes south, right? Now, the reality and the truth of if you're doing a lot of volume, you will have some deals that don't go the way you wanted them to go. We obviously mitigate that as well as possible. Right. But however, there are some people who will associate a meaning to that as I'm a failure, or I've screwed up. That's all I was called to screw up when I was a kid. So here I go again. Here's the evidence that says they were right. I was still a screw up. And so we'll hold on to that. Now, what does that do? I'm a screw up. And by the way, I reject that for anybody listening. Right. Becomes part of your identity. Now, everything you approach and continued in your future is going to be beating against that muscle reflex of, well, I'm a screw up. So now when a great opportunity comes across to you, you may not even pursue the opportunity because your belief is, I'm a screw up. So I'm not even going to go after that. I'm not even going to make an offer on that multi-unit building because I'm a screw up and I'll screw it up. Right. So it can all work against where we're wanting to go. And so, yes, there may in fact be a shift in identity. Absolutely. That becomes a part of releasing what doesn't seem to work for you and what meanings you associated to events.
I've got a left field question for you because I'm sitting here totally curious about this. Have you seen religion, people growing up in a religious, whatever the religion happens to be, do you see it impact people as adults from that childhood experience? And if so, is it positive? If so, is it negative? Or it's just all over the board? Just depends on the person.
Wow. Yeah, no, absolutely. So the all over the board answer is that whatever happens to us growing up at any point, and it can be yesterday, growing up, yesterday I was a day younger than I am today, right? So it could be anything that happens in our life can create, depending on how strong we are and how self-aware we are in our direction and what we want to associate with things can become a part of our fabric that affects how we make decisions moving forward, right? I mean, the pandemic is a great example of that. The pandemic shifted a lot of people's belief systems, crazy, irrational ways, right? Because they didn't have that strong belief system going into an event like that. Now, religion specifically, 100% have I seen people in their adult life have difficulties making decisions about things because of the beliefs that they were given. And by the way, it's not just one religion. I mean, there's thousands of religions in the world. That's right. And I worked with people from all types of religious backgrounds, all different types of cultural backgrounds, cultural backgrounds where there's extreme expectations or shoulds from their family and how things are done. And that becomes, again, a part of our fabric. So let's say, for example, that you were raised in a strict religion. I actually was. I was raised in a really way out there, doesn't have great press type religion. And it was difficult and challenging and became a big part of my fabric. So that things I wanted to go do, but I ran this program that said, well, that's sinful. That's wrong. Like my money mindset, you talk about being really screwed up with my money mindset, because how I was raised around money in my religion, money was considered a deadly sin. Money was a bad thing. Money should always be given away. You can't hold on to money. So what did that teach me as an adult? It taught me that I couldn't hold on to money. And so I would just have to let it go. I couldn't treat it well because I didn't understand. So it's not just religion specifically, but understand that whatever you were told, right?
Whatever a belief system is as a child. Yes, correct.
Become a belief system as an adult until you address it.
Yeah. Wow. This is a really interesting conversation. Largest difference between, let's say the high achievers and those who have yet to achieve, I'll put it in that category, in their personalities, in their identity, moving forward with them, and in their self-investment as well. It seems to me like the high achievers I know and associate with, they invest very heavily in themselves. It seems like at some point they get very self-aware of our conversation, and know that it's a lot of inner game in order to move forward.
100%.
A lot of questions wrapped up in. My little dialogue there.
I love that. And as you're talking, I'm like, well, this, that. Okay.
Yeah.
The last thing you said triggered something I think I want to say first is that there's relativity to the phrase high achiever. Okay.
Yes.
So be really crystal clear about all of our listeners, right? It's like a high achiever, a guy can have 1,000 units, 10,000 units, 100 units, whatever. Right. And this guy has 0. And you could say, well, this guy is more of a high achiever than this guy. But maybe not, because maybe this guy over here who only has 0 units has done a million other amazing things and his life is well balanced and he's in ecology and he's taking care of himself. And this guy over here is like, not right. So So first of all, there's relativity and each person needs to define for themselves what is high achievement to you. But I do see this and I say that because even those high achievers who have made lots of money and they've got the supercars and the fancy houses and all the things and whatever, that they are still sometimes some of the worst for not investing in themselves. And in fact, I was just having this conversation with a guy who leads a mastermind that's very well respected in the country. And he was frustrated with some of his own members because they need someone like me right now because they're calling him freaking out about the market shifting and all these things. And he's like, you need a head coach. You need a performance coach right now. Like this is the time for that. And they don't want to make the investment, but they'll spend 6 figures plus on masterminds, mentors, tax accountants, attorneys, asset protection people, like all the things that help protect what they've built. But the one thing that could crush everything they've built is their headspace, and they won't invest $1. So that brings me back to the beginning of your question, which is it's just a level of growth. I think all people go through levels of growth. Mm-hmm. What happens is that certain of us get to a certain elevated consciousness where we understand the value of the inner game. We understand the value of creating win-wins for the world. We understand the value of super high achieving and very viscerally connected to our why. Other people's values levels of growth, where they're at in their consciousness growth, they're all about win-win-win-win without at the cost of everything around them.
Correct.
They have elevated to that. And so it's not about the number of units or the net profit or or whatever. It's more about where are you in your level of consciousness of growth, right? I know young people in their 20s who have grown to higher levels of consciousness than gentlemen in their 50s who have made millions, right? So I think it's just where you are in your consciousness of growth. And if you're listening and this is resonating with you, great. That means you have elevated your consciousness. That's so continue to do that and step into that.
That's great. Let's move on. I want to go to the final segment, what I call for impact. Your favorite quote. Now, you've given me 3. We'll go through all 3 because the first one I'm going to tell you is now my favorite quote that anyone's ever provided on the show. You had the power all along, my dear. Glenda, the Good Witch of the North from The Wizard of Oz said it. Now my favorite quote of all time that anyone's ever said on the show. What about that resonates most with you?
Wow. Okay. So I love this. It's such a simple quote. I think we watched that movie and it just goes right past people. Like yes. We don't resonate with it. So let's think about the Wizard of Oz story for just a second, because there's another great quote I love too, where it's not a real quote, but she's basically like, bring it. I already put the house on the first witch, right?
Yeah.
But Dorothy is going through this journey, right? And if you think about the hero's journey, if anybody really understands the hero journey kind of concept, and that's really what's happening in the Wizard of Oz. And so she's going through levels of consciousness of growth as she goes along the Yellow Brick Road, and she meets these projections of her own issues in each one of these characters, the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and all the things. Now, let's remember, though, that this entire journey, she has on her feet a pair of ruby red slippers. And so she's convinced, she creates a belief system that says the only way I can get home, the only way is I got to go through this journey, this hard journey. I got to face all these flying monkeys and melting witches, and I have to talk to the guy in the Emerald City. And she has this belief system. So what is she doing? She's facing the end of the hallway of I'm afraid and I'm sad and I want this and I want that, all survival thinking. And she's limiting the innovative thought that she actually has of how she could get home. And she's only going one path. Okay. Now, most of us go through life like that. We're going through this journey. The reality is, as Glenda Goodwitch points out to her, is that the ruby red slippers did nothing. They're simply red glittery shoes. That's all they actually were. That she herself had the power from day one to choose to go home. And that's what we all have. Every one of us is holding inside ourselves the power to be exactly what we want to be where we really want to be, and to let go of the shit that we think we have to do or should do or are expected to do, that the status quo, the way the guru says to do it, the way that whatever it is that we're labeling as, well, I've got to do it this way because this is what's expected, or this is how my colleague did it, or this is how Joe Smith down the road did it, or whatever. Not that we don't model excellence and find mentors, but we tend to limit ourselves. We're saying, well, this is the way I have to. Well, for what evidence? What evidence says you have to do it that way? What evidence says that you got to beat yourself up every day? What evidence says you have to be a perfectionist every day? What evidence says that? Who said that? Where'd that come from? Right? Because we create these things. That's why my company is called Rules ReWritten, because it's about rewriting the rules, right? Rewriting your rules to do life on your terms. And the rules are the things you carry in your head that are actually working against you, not for you. And that's the point of that quote, is you have the power in you all along to have exactly what you were designed for. So let's get rid of all the stuff and the flying monkeys and just go for it.
I absolutely love it and couldn't agree more. I limit everybody to one quote, but I love these quotes so much, and I love that may have been the best answer ever. I love the dialogue you gave there. So let's listen. I'm gonna do all of them. So Yogi Berra said, "If you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else."
Yes. It's absolutely one of my favorite quotes. And if I say it once a day, I say it 10 times a day to somebody. Yeah. My kids know that quote. They walk around with they'll look at me like, yeah, no, mom. They literally say it back to me. It's such a powerful quote. And it comes back to that visceral connection of direction. I have an activity that I love to do when I'm in a large room. I'll have everybody close their eyes and I'll say, I want everybody in the room to imagine going to the beach. The reality is there'll be 200 people in the room, and every one of those people will picture a different beach. Mm-hmm. Some guy's thinking of a beach in Alaska. Someone else is thinking of Chile. Someone else is in Maui. They're infinitely different beaches. And the reality is when you picture yourself going to the beach, that's great. It becomes this dream image, and we carry it around with ourselves. And it's like, oh yeah, that'd be nice to stick my toes in the sand or ice or whatever it is. Right. But we won't actually go plan and do the work to go to the beach until you make it super specific. So as soon as you say to your brain, well, I want to be in, Kaanapali Shores, Maui by 5 p.m. on November 13th. Well, if that's what you've decided, then what happens is the brain literally goes into gear, boom. Yep. And it starts laying out exactly how to go do it. Well, I got to go find the boarding for the dog. I got to lay out this. I got to get on, delta.com and find the flights that actually fit. Because obviously you're going to choose the flights that fit getting you there by 5 p.m. on November 13th and not a flight that gets you there on the 15th, right? It becomes a filter for your decisions. And so you can move faster. You can be much more efficient. And so most people, they just don't have that. They don't have any clarity as to where they're going and for what purpose. And so if you don't choose where you're going to go, you're going to end up someplace else. And if you're okay with that, great, right? But the reality is you probably aren't going to be okay with that. And then that's the people who wake up 10 years later, 15 years later, where did my life go? Why am I not where I wanted to be? Well, because you didn't choose where you wanted to go. That's it. No.
Yep. And life's going to send you someplace else.
It's going to send you someplace else. It's going to send you somewhere. You're absolutely going to go somewhere.
For sure.
Just where you go.
Yep, that's right. Opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. Edison said it.
I love that.
So do I. Yeah. Yeah, no. So good.
They want it to be so easy. They want the easy button life. And I will say this last 20, 30, 40 years of our existence on this planet, right, has become the instant gratification generations, right? We want everything immediately. We're not patient anymore. We don't want to put in the effort anymore. And even those of you who are like, well, I do. I'm like, yeah, still probably statistically less than those in generations ahead of you. So that we have this leaning towards everything should be super simple. And we let ourselves get frustrated and frayed and stressed and anxious really quick. We're so fast to getting stressed out. And a lot of it has to do with that exact quote, right? Where, well, I want it to be easy. So if it's not, then I'm just going to let myself go into a negative state emotion. And then that takes you down that wormhole we talked about earlier. So be prepared to put on the overalls and do the work. And if you're viscerally connected to why, it won't be work anymore.
That's right. What do you think holds most investors back from hitting their personal next level? I asked the question to everybody else, and I know we've touched on it, but I'm going to ask it again, a little different way.
They don't really want it.
What does that mean? Go take me one step deeper.
So I think a lot of times when we say we want something, it sounds good.
Yeah.
It sounds good. It looks good on paper. Maybe there's even some pressure as to that's what it should be because so-and-so did, or that's what my wife expects or whatever. I think sometimes we choose things that are not connected with how we want our life to look and feel like, and how we really want the vision of our life to be. And so we're choosing things that aren't what we really want, right? We're choosing a want, but not what we really want. So they won't hit the next level because here's the reality. If I say I want something, but I don't really want it because it's going to work in conflict to other parts of my life vision, maybe it's going to cause me to have to work 100 hours a week and that's going to hurt my family life, but family is important to me, or it's going to affect my spirituality and I won't have time for my faith. And so that's going to work against me. So what you're doing is creating sometimes a want that is in direct conflict to the things that matter the most to you, right? So if part of you is going after something you want that's creating direct conflict with other parts of you, then you'll just do this, right? You'll be working in conflict, which by the way, creates a massive amount of stress for your body. It actually physically harms you. It ages you. It will actually make you sick. Disease is dis-ease of the body. You'll actually end up sick. So when I think a lot of people do that. And so what happens is the body has to protect you. Its unconscious mind's job is to keep you alive, right? And so it literally just says, well, we're not going to go after what you want. You said you want it. We're not going to reach the next level because it's in conflict with what we need for you to survive and be healthy and happy and thriving. And so therefore, as your unconscious mind, I'm going to create behaviors that keep you from getting it. And so we just live in this conflict box, right? I find that with a lot of my clients, and we uncover that. It's one of the first things we do in our discovery process is to discover, is what you want really in alignment with how you want life to feel, look, and be, and so that you're healthy and thriving. That's your brain's prime directive. So we got to make sure we're working within your heart vision and your prime directive, and then we won't have conflict.
Outside of real estate and helping people, achieve, their peak performance, what are you most passionate about?
Oh, wow. Well, I'm a mom. So my kids, everybody says that answer. I want to say it's a combination. So our family is all about family and adventure. So we have a little thing here in our family, and it's a project I'm really excited to do one day. In a big way, something we call Moments, Not Things. Every week we do something we've never done before. Yeah. And we've been doing that for 14 years now. Wow. I'm a single mom, so I've raised mine for 14 years all by myself. And so one of the things that we look forward to is doing things we've never done before. And it teaches my children to try new things, to do hard things, to explore, to be curious. And curiosity is one of my values words of life. So
very cool.
That's it. That's our passion.
Yeah, a lot of fun there. What's your favorite way to make an impact in the community?
Oh, so I would say my absolute favorite way, honestly, in any community you drop me in. I mean, if you've just dropped me into one, right? I'm all about leaving people feeling more empowered and more confident. 100%. If I can elevate their confidence, if someone was just asking me the other day, I used to do a ton of local market things where I'd meet a bunch of investors in front of a property and I'd spend the whole day teaching them how to, learn the trust system in the roof and how to evaluate whether there was foundation issues and all the things. And I love doing that. And they were like, well, you love doing it. Why don't you still do it? And he said, why did you do it? I says, well, the reason I did it, what got me so juiced and excited every single time is that at the end of the day, that small group of people, 25, 30 people each time, they would leave feeling so empowered and so confident about the next steps of their business. We would obliterate some uncertainty that day, right? We would fill the gap for them. And it's that, right? And so every time I have an opportunity to just be a little piece of that in someone's life, that's everything I want.
Well, I know I'll speak for myself. How about that? I know you did that today. This has been terrific, eye-opening. I took a lot of nuggets away from here, and I'm certain the listeners have as well. And speaking of that, for somebody who wants to connect with you, they want to find you, they want to follow you, what can they do? Where should they go?
Yes. So I've got this new team of people that's supposedly going to be helping me put all this content out, so I'm excited about. They are saying just push everybody to my Instagram. So for right now, please go to my Instagram, Amy Ransdell _coach, and just start following me. If this resonated and there's something I can do for you, please direct message me. I do have a team that's helping watch those direct messages. I would love to connect with you. You're welcome to go to our website, rulesrewritten.com, and you can book a one-on-one session there also if you're interested. However, So honestly, please sure to follow me on Instagram. We have a ton of great content coming, and I would love to be a little piece of energy for each of you each day if you follow us.
That's terrific. We'll make sure we get those links put below in the show notes. Amy, I really appreciate you taking the time to connect up and share the tremendous value here for a lot of folks. I think the inner game is unbelievably valuable, can move your business probably further faster than any other segment of what one could invest in.
100%. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity and the time for all the listeners. If you spent the time with us today, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks so much. Hey, for everybody here at Real Grit, I'm Neil Timmins, reminding you that real estate requires real grit. See you next time. What if I told you can make 20 times the return of a single family fix and flip on your next big deal? Well, it's actually possible. It's possible inside the world of commercial real estate. Say, I'm inviting you to this free challenge. It starts August 15th. It's totally free. It's a 5-day challenge where I'm going to take you and deep dive into the world of commercial real estate, more specifically, capital multiplier properties, what that is, how we identify them. I'm going to show you how to identify them, how to evaluate them, and how to lock them up risk-free. I'm going to give you all the paperwork to do it. It's totally free. You can sign up to join us at www. If you like our content and want more, you can access it at realgritpodcast.com. You hear it guest after guest. Instinctively, you already know it. But let me call it out. The most expensive action is inaction. The real estate market is full of opportunities. You just need to uncover them. You can build a business that lasts for years, makes monumental impact in the lives of those that you love. It's not just about business, but about the freedom you get because of it. Have you ever heard the saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I believe that partnering is essential. In fact, I partner with hardworking investors all the time. The point is that you can get a lot further with the right partner. Let me say it again, the right partner. If you've ever thought about partnering with anyone, or if you have a partner now, I encourage you to download my free Partner and Profit Guide, which includes the top 5 must-answer questions to evaluate a profitable partnership. You can find it at www.legacyimpactpartners.com. I'll see you in the next episode.